What's up, guys? Let's start another video. So what my plan is to build a Snake3D in Angular and a 3D library that is based on WebGL free.js. And yeah, you want to see how it's made? Let's get into it right now. So let's start with generating new project, Angular project, of course. ng new, and let's call it Snake3D. So let's get to it. Now it's building. If I want routing, I don't want any routing. I want SAS, of course. So our new project is ready. So there it is, our newly created Angular project. So we have basic scaffolding over here. So what we want to do right now is to install our 3D library that is called, we just do something like npm install and free.js that will do the whole job related to 3D rendering. So let's install it right now. Here we go. Let's check our package JSON. And there it is, 3.js. So let's get into it. So if we want to use our free.js library and we want to use, all the typings and stuff. So first what we have to do, we have to install was installed, and now as you can see our import is no longer a bug. So we can access a scene. So basically, I'm not really familiar with that library, so I want to take you on a journey to learn it the way that I will learn, and hopefully you will learn as well. So what we have here, to access our DOM element, what we do a viewChild component that we are taking from our template, and we are accessing it through this hash and name of the container. And once we have the access, then we are using the lifecycle method to access after the view is initialized. So before it, we don't have access to this DOM element, so that's why we have to do this. Alright guys, so what we have so far. So we have a scene, is basically the space where we render everything. The next thing is our camera. Is like the vision that we just have a view of everything that is happening in our scene. And what kind of parameters we have? So we have 75, the angle that we are seeing our view. In this case is 75 degrees that we are seeing our view. The next is aspect ratio, that is basically the width and height divided. The next is the clipping parameters, which means if you have the shorter distance, then you clip things in our view, and also how far you can see, and the rest you're not going to render, just to save some memory. Okay, so that's what we have. The next we have renderer, our engine to render things in our browser, basically in Canvas. So the next thing is we are setting the size of our renderer, is the window that we will render everything, basically. So it's just the width and height of our window in our browser. The next, we're just taking the canvas, the HTML DOM element, and we are inserting in our container, which is, if you just check our template, is this div over there. Okay, so moving on, we have box geometry, vertices that, as you can see, just width, height, and the depth of our cube. And the next object is basically the material that our cube is based on, and in this case it's just a simple color. We are combining those two parameters, objects, into the mesh, the object that we are actually inserted to our scene, to appear in our scene. And to not overlap our camera perspective with our cube that we will render, we just zoom out a little bit. Next we have animate function that is basically rotating our cube, and here is something which is very crucial. This is the place where we actually render our scene and our camera combining together and rendering. So this is the example that I actually copied from documentation, just to have some foundation to start, and we can build upon it. And now see the outcome of all of the code that I showed you previously. So this is our cube basically, right? And it's working perfectly. Alright guys, so what do we have right now? So what we did during all those hours of working, I just tweaked a little bit parameters over here in perspective of our camera to have it more natural. I just changed the angle to 45 degrees, as you can see it here. We just assign width and height to just class parameters. And basically that's it for renderer. Moving on, so instead of a cube, we just create like the area that upon the snake will be moving around. So it's with 20 by 20. Change a little, I just change the color a little. And we create new geometry, which is our snake, which is right now just a cube for now. And we move position Z by 1, which means the Z in the Z axis is just moving a little bit up, so now it's going on the top of the area that we created before. Of course we added those meshes to scene, and also we tweaked a little bit camera here. So what we did, we just zoom out, because now we have much larger area, so we zoom out. We just moved in a Y axis, just a little bit down, and rotate it to have a little angle of our scenery. And what else? We have an infinite loop over here that is basically rendering our scene and our camera. And what is going on here? We have a private function, and this function is actually rendering our snake. which is just a cube like I mentioned before. And it is rendering by moving position in Y or X direction dependent on the key events. And this direction, this variable is actually a private variable from our class. So what I did here, by host listener, we are listening to key events. So every time you press any key, this inside function is invoked, and we're just checking if it's a arrow down or arrow up, left or right, and then we are assigning, this key. So based on those values, we just adjusting direction which our snake is moving. So this is like, incrementing or decrementing, and it's going forever. Okay, so now I want to show you like the result of my work. Okay, let's run the project. Will take just a little while. No worries. All right, project is up and running, and what we have here, like I mentioned before, is just a cube moving around our area that I created. So we have, control. Of course, I will do some refactor later on, but this is a good foundation for now, I would say. Okay, so let's move on with our project.